Goodness, by itself, has never been enough. History does not remember those who were merely kind, nor does it reward those who act with pure intentions but without foresight. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this with startling clarity. He saw that the world operates not on ideals, but on power, perception, and influence. To be good without strategy is not virtue, it is vulnerability. A person who moves through life assuming that fairness alone will protect them is not walking a noble path, but an unguarded one. Machiavelli did not reject morality. He simply recognized that in a world governed by ambition and competition, goodness without intelligence is a weakness rather than a strength. There is a tendency to believe that being kind, fair, and honest is enough to succeed, that if one treats others well, the same will be returned. But Machiavelli saw reality differently. He observed that while people admire goodness in theory, they respond more predictably to strength. Kindness without the presence of authority is often mistaken for passivity. Generosity without boundaries invites exploitation. Mercy, when given without calculation, can embolden those who see it as a sign of fragility rather than wisdom. This was not cynicism on his part, but an acknowledgement of how power truly operates. Modern life, much like the courts and battlefields of Machiavelli's time, is shaped not only by what is right, but by what is strategic. Reputation often carries more weight than intent, and perception influences reality more than truth itself. Those who fail to understand this find themselves at the mercy of those who do. A person who relies on morality alone to navigate the world may find that their ideals, however noble, are not enough to shield them from manipulation, deception, or betrayal. The Stoics, too, understood this dynamic, emphasizing not just virtue, but wisdom in its application. To be truly effective, goodness must be paired with discernment, kindness must be reinforced by strength, and trust must be granted with caution rather than indiscriminately. Machiavelli's insights are not calls for cruelty, nor are they rejections of morality. They are reminders that power and virtue do not naturally align, and that navigating life effectively requires more than just good intentions. To move wisely through the world is to understand that fairness is not guaranteed, that perception shapes outcomes, and that intelligence is the force that allows virtue to survive in a world that does not always reward it. Strength and strategy do not corrupt goodness, they protect it. Without them, even the best of intentions can be rendered powerless. Kindness, when given without awareness, does not always inspire gratitude. It often invites exploitation. Machiavelli understood this with sharp precision, recognizing that while goodness is admired in theory, in practice, it is often mistaken for vulnerability. A person who assumes that fairness alone will protect them misunderstands the nature of power. In a world governed by ambition and self-interest, kindness must be tempered with wisdom. Otherwise, it ceases to be a virtue and becomes a liability. Those who offer generosity without discernment often find themselves burdened with obligations they never intended to take on, gradually drained by the expectations of others. Marcus Aurelius reflected on this reality, observing that virtue must be accompanied by clarity of judgment. He saw that kindness, when extended without consideration of character, could strengthen those who may not deserve it, emboldening rather than tempering them. He did not reject generosity, but he urged that it be given deliberately, not blindly. To act with goodness is noble, but to assume that all will respond in kind is to ignore the complexities of human nature. Machiavelli took this further, warning that those who lead with virtue alone, without understanding strategy, often find themselves at the mercy of those who do not share their principles. Seneca approached this truth from another perspective, noting that habitual kindness, when given without boundaries, quickly loses its value. What begins as an act of goodwill often turns into an expectation, and when kindness becomes expected rather than appreciated, it ceases to hold weight. He saw that generosity should be measured, not withheld, but given with purpose, ensuring that it strengthens rather than weakens the one offering it. Those who fail to recognize this dynamic often find that their kindness, instead of inspiring loyalty, becomes a quiet burden that others come to take for granted. This lesson remains just as relevant in modern life. In personal relationships, workplaces, and social interactions, those who lead with unchecked kindness often attract people who see generosity not as a virtue, but as an opportunity. The world does not inherently reward goodness, it rewards intelligence. Machiavelli did not advocate cruelty. He simply saw that kindness without boundaries or strength is easily mistaken for passivity. To be truly effective, kindness must be intentional. It must be shaped by awareness, reinforced by discernment, and accompanied by the willingness to say no. True wisdom lies in knowing when to extend kindness and when to withhold it, ensuring that generosity does not become an invitation for exploitation. Marcus Aurelius offered goodwill where it was earned, not where it was demanded. Seneca advised caution, recognizing that unchecked generosity can create dependency rather than gratitude. Machiavelli understood that kindness is not enough. It must be balanced with strategy, ensuring that it serves both the giver and the world they navigate. To be good is admirable, but to be good and aware is to move through life with both virtue and strength. Morality in itself does not command respect. Strength does. Machiavelli understood this reality well, observing that people admire virtue but respond to power. A person may be kind, honest, and just, but without an air of authority, these traits often go unnoticed or, worse, are seen as weaknesses to be exploited. Those who rely solely on their moral character to earn influence often find themselves overlooked in favor of those who project confidence and decisiveness. Goodness, when not reinforced by the ability to assert one's position, is frequently dismissed as passivity rather than respected as principle. Marcus Aurelius, despite his commitment to virtue, recognized that leadership required more than just moral integrity. It required presence, command, and an understanding of how perception shapes influence. He knew that to lead effectively, one must not only be good, but also be seen as capable. A ruler who is virtuous but weak invites disorder, while one who embodies both wisdom and strength commands both admiration and stability. Machiavelli took this further, arguing that a leader who is moral but lacks the ability to assert control will ultimately be at the mercy of those who are willing to act more decisively. He saw that power does not always belong to the most ethical, but to the most strategic. Seneca acknowledged this tension between morality and strength, observing that people often mistake gentleness for fragility unless it is paired with resolve. He recognized that kindness alone is not always met with gratitude. It must be supported by the ability to enforce boundaries. Those who seek to navigate life with principle must also cultivate an unshakable presence, one that ensures their values are respected rather than ignored. Seneca saw that true influence does not come from merely being good, but from demonstrating an ability to stand firm when necessary. This principle holds true in all aspects of life, in workplaces, in relationships, In any social setting, those who rely solely on their character to gain respect often find that it is not enough. Influence requires a blend of ethical clarity and assertiveness. Without both, morality can be overshadowed by those who have mastered the art of command. Machiavelli's insight was not a rejection of virtue, but a recognition that it must be accompanied by strength to be effective. The Stoics understood that while goodness is valuable, it is not self-sustaining. Marcus Aurelius ensured that his commitment to justice did not come at the expense of his authority. Seneca warned against being so virtuous that one becomes easy to disregard. Machiavelli saw that morality without power is fragile, and that those who wish to be both good and respected must understand how to assert themselves. The world does not reward virtue alone. It rewards those who know how to wield it with confidence. Perception, more than reality, dictates influence. Machiavelli understood that the way one is seen often matters more than who they truly are. People do not act based on unseen virtues or hidden intentions. They respond to what is presented before them. Those who fail to manage their image, who assume that their true character alone will speak for itself, often find that others define them first. In politics, in leadership, in personal relationships, perception is a form of power. To ignore it is to surrender control over how one is treated, respected, or dismissed. Marcus Aurelius, though deeply committed to personal integrity, recognized the weight of perception. As emperor, he could not afford to be seen as indecisive, even when he wrestled with internal doubts. His writings reveal his awareness of how easily the public misinterprets kindness as weakness or caution as hesitation. He sought to rule with wisdom, yet he understood that appearing resolute was just as necessary as being just. Machiavelli took this idea further, arguing that a ruler must actively shape how they are perceived. It is not enough to be good. One must ensure that their goodness is seen as strength rather than naivety. Seneca, reflecting on the way people judge one another, warned against assuming that merit alone would earn respect. He observed how easily public opinion shifts, how quickly a person's reputation can be formed or destroyed based on appearances rather than substance. He advised his students to be mindful of the narratives others construct about them, recognizing that reputation, once lost, is difficult to rebuild. To Seneca, guarding one's image was not vanity, it was wisdom, an acknowledgement that perception often dictates opportunity. In modern life, this truth remains unchanged. People are constantly evaluated, not always by their deepest qualities, but by how they present themselves. A competent individual who does not project confidence may be overlooked in favor of someone less capable but more self-assured. A person who does not manage their reputation may find that others shape it for them. Machiavelli did not suggest deceit, but he understood that those who fail to control their image often fall victim to the narratives of others. The Stoics, despite their emphasis on inner virtue, did not ignore the external world. Marcus Aurelius balanced personal integrity with the necessity of appearing strong. Seneca recognized that character must be accompanied by an awareness of how it is perceived. Machiavelli saw that neglecting one's image is not a mark of humility, but a mistake that allows others to define one's position. Influence does not belong solely to the most capable or the most ethical. It belongs to those who understand that perception shapes reality, and those who shape perception, in turn, shape their own fate. Emotional control is not just a personal discipline, it is a form of power. Machiavelli understood this with sharp clarity, recognizing that those who cannot govern their emotions inevitably become controlled by those who can. A person who reacts impulsively, who allows anger or frustration to dictate their actions, becomes predictable, easy to manipulate, easy to provoke, and ultimately easy to defeat. In contrast, those who master their emotional responses hold a distinct advantage. They're not ruled by fleeting impulses or temporary frustrations. Instead, they respond with strategy rather than reflex, ensuring that their decisions remain unaffected by the chaos of the moment. Marcus Aurelius was deeply aware of this principle, often reminding himself that external events have no inherent power to disturb the mind. Only one's interpretation of them does. He saw anger, fear, and resentment as distractions, emotions that cloud judgment and lead to choices made in haste rather than wisdom. As emperor, he could not afford to react to every slight or insult. He understood that leadership required a steady temperament, that decisions made in anger often led to regret, and that self-control was not merely a virtue, but a necessity for those in positions of influence. He practiced the art of restraint, ensuring that his emotions served him rather than dictated his actions. Seneca expanded on this idea, observing how emotional outbursts weaken credibility and erode authority. He noted that those who are easily provoked reveal their weaknesses, making it clear where they can be pressured or manipulated. He warned that an individual who cannot control their temper gives others the blueprint for their downfall. Seneca believed that true strength is found in the ability to remain composed, even when circumstances provoke an immediate emotional response. He encouraged the practice of pausing before reacting, allowing reason to shape decisions rather than impulse. Epictetus approached emotional mastery from the perspective of personal freedom. He saw that those who are easily angered, offended, or unsettled are, in essence, enslaved to external forces. If a mere insult, a minor inconvenience, or an unexpected challenge can dictate one's mood or actions, then control has already been surrendered. Epictetus taught that real power is found in the ability to observe emotions without becoming consumed by them. He did not advocate emotional suppression, but rather awareness, the ability to recognize feelings without allowing them to dictate behavior. This lesson is just as relevant in the modern world as it was in the courts and battlefields of Machiavelli's time. In professional settings, those who react emotionally to criticism often undermine their own authority, while those who remain composed under pressure command greater respect. In relationships, those who allow jealousy or anger to control their responses often create unnecessary conflict, while those who approach challenges with patience and understanding foster stronger connections. In negotiations, the person who stays calm holds the advantage over the one who reacts impulsively. The world favors those who can remain steady in moments of tension, and those who fail to develop this discipline often find themselves at the mercy of those who have. Machiavelli saw emotional control not as detachment, but as a tool for influence. He observed that people trust those who appear unshaken, who do not panic in the face of adversity, who do not lash out when provoked. Marcus Aurelius trained himself to meet external challenges with an internal stillness, recognizing that while he could not control the world, he could always control his reaction to it. Seneca understood that the ability to govern one's emotions determines the ability to govern one's life. Epictetus saw that freedom is not found in controlling circumstances, but in controlling oneself. The Stoics and Machiavelli both arrived at the same conclusion. Emotional mastery is not about suppressing feeling, but about ensuring that feelings do not control action. Anger, fear, and frustration will always arise, but they do not have to dictate behavior. Those who learn to observe their emotions without becoming ruled by them gain an undeniable advantage. They move through the world with intention rather than reaction, making decisions that serve their goals rather than their impulses. And in doing so, they ensure that power over themselves and their circumstances remains firmly in their own hands. Information, once shared, becomes a weapon that can be used against you. Machiavelli understood this with sharp precision, recognizing that those who openly reveal their plans, ambitions, or vulnerabilities surrender a key advantage: the power of unpredictability. To be entirely transparent is to grant others insight into one's mind, offering them the ability to anticipate, counter, or manipulate one's actions. He saw that control over information is control over perception, and control over perception is control over power. Those who master discretion hold an undeniable advantage, while those who speak freely often find their own words turned against them. Marcus Aurelius, though committed to integrity and truth, understood the necessity of measured speech. He observed that while honesty is a virtue, it does not require full disclosure. A person's intentions, ambitions, and inner thoughts should not be laid bare for all to see, for not everyone will receive them with goodwill. He practiced a quiet restraint, revealing only what was necessary and withholding what did not serve a greater purpose. To Marcus, wisdom lay in knowing when to speak and when to remain silent, understanding that words, once released, cannot be reclaimed. Seneca expanded on this principle, noting how people often reveal too much in the pursuit of validation or approval. He saw that many speak openly, not because it serves them, but because they seek reassurance from others. Yet, he warned, trust is not always returned in kind. Confiding in the wrong person, revealing too much too soon, or exposing plans before they have come to fruition often leads to unintended consequences. He observed that those who learn to keep their true intentions guarded maintain an upper hand, protecting themselves from manipulation, betrayal, or interference. Epictetus approached this idea from the perspective of self-possession. He believed that one who speaks impulsively, sharing every thought and emotion without consideration, gives away their inner strength. He saw that silence, when used intentionally, is not an absence of voice, but a presence of control. To him, the ability to withhold information when necessary was not deception, but discipline, a recognition that not everything should be shared, and not everyone should be trusted. He taught that true confidence does not require external validation, and that self-mastery begins with mastering one's own words. In the modern world, where transparency is often mistaken for authenticity, this lesson remains just as relevant. Social media encourages constant sharing, workplaces reward those who are outspoken, and society values openness as a sign of trustworthiness. Yet, as Machiavelli and the Stoics understood, not all information should be freely given. A person who reveals their every thought, plan, or weakness invites unnecessary scrutiny and makes themselves an easy target for those who seek advantage. Privacy is not secrecy, it is strategy. Marcus Aurelius practiced discretion, ensuring that his decisions were made with careful thought rather than impulsive expression. Seneca cautioned against the need for constant validation, recognizing that the wise hold back what does not serve them to share. Epictetus taught that those who cannot govern their own speech cannot govern much else, and that restraint in words often reflects mastery over one's own mind. Machiavelli ever pragmatic, saw that silence is a tool as powerful as speech, one that allows a person to remain in control of their narrative rather than allowing others to shape it for them. The Stoics and Machiavelli arrived at the same conclusion. Power belongs to those who master their words as carefully as they master their actions. To speak with intention is to ensure that one's influence remains intact. To withhold when necessary is to prevent others from gaining an advantage. And to move through the world with measured speech is not deception, but wisdom, the understanding that not every truth must be spoken, not every thought must be shared, and not every plan must be revealed before its time. As scarcity creates value, what is always available is often taken for granted, while what is rare commands attention. Machiavelli understood this principle deeply, recognizing that presence, when constant, loses its impact. He observed that those who make themselves too accessible, whether in power, relationships, or influence, often diminish their own worth. To be always seen, always available, is to become ordinary, expected, and easily dismissed. He saw that distance, when used intentionally, does not weaken influence, but strengthens it. Strategic absence is not avoidance. It is the deliberate creation of demand. Marcus Aurelius, though an emperor, understood the importance of stepping back, of not allowing himself to be consumed by the expectations of others. He saw that retreating into solitude for reflection was not a sign of detachment, but a means of maintaining clarity. He knew that constant engagement without pause leads to exhaustion, not just for oneself, but for those who perceive them. He practiced balance, engaging with the world fully when necessary, yet withdrawing when needed to preserve both his own mind and the respect of those around him. Seneca explored this idea through the lens of social dynamics. He noted that familiarity often breeds complacency. The more accessible a person is, the more their presence becomes routine, their value assumed rather than appreciated. He saw that those who learn when to step back, when to create space, often find that their influence grows rather than fades. He did not advocate detachment, but he understood that absence, when used wisely, fosters anticipation, curiosity, and greater appreciation. Just as wealth gains value through rarity, so too does a person's presence. Epictetus, ever practical, taught that controlling one's availability is an act of self-respect. He saw that those who are always present, always giving, often find themselves drained, emotionally, mentally, and physically. He understood that self-worth is not determined by how much one offers to others, but by how wisely one chooses to engage. He warned against mistaking constant availability for generosity, recognizing that true influence is not measured by presence alone, but by the weight of one's actions when they do appear. This lesson applies across all areas of life. In relationships, excessive availability can lead to diminished appreciation, while space can renew interest and respect. In leadership, those who make themselves too common risk losing the authority their position requires. In careers, those who are always accessible may find that their time is undervalued, their contributions assumed rather than recognized. The world naturally assigns higher value to what appears just out of reach. This is not manipulation, but an understanding of human nature. Machiavelli saw this clearly, advising rulers to ensure that their presence remained significant by not making it constant. Marcus Aurelius embraced solitude not as an escape, but as a necessary element of wisdom. Seneca understood that anticipation deepens appreciation, and that stepping away at the right moment often strengthens a connection rather than weakens it. Epictetus saw that managing one's availability is not selfish. It is a form of self-preservation. The Stoics and Machiavelli both recognized that to be always available is to become invisible. Influence is not built by constant presence, but by meaningful engagement at the right moments. Learning when to step back is not about creating distance for its own sake, but about ensuring that when one does return, their presence carries weight. Power does not come from being everywhere. It comes from being valued when one chooses to appear. Fear is a currency in the world of power. Machiavelli understood this with striking clarity, recognizing that respect is not freely given. It is demanded through presence, control, and, when necessary, the ability to inspire fear. While people may admire kindness, they hesitate before crossing those they fear. A person who seeks only to be loved, without the ability to command authority, often finds themselves ignored or taken advantage of. Machiavelli argued that if one cannot be both feared and loved, it is better to choose fear. Not cruelty, not recklessness, but the kind of controlled authority that ensures one is not easily dismissed or exploited. Marcus Aurelius, though deeply committed to virtue, understood the necessity of strength. He did not seek to rule through fear, yet he recognized that a leader who lacks the ability to enforce boundaries will not maintain control for long. He observed that fairness alone does not create stability. It must be reinforced with the presence of unwavering authority. His rule was not harsh, but it was firm. He understood that influence requires more than goodwill. It requires the ability to assert oneself, to stand unwavering in the face of opposition. Without this, even the most just leader risks becoming ineffective. Seneca offered a more psychological perspective on this principle, noting that people instinctively test boundaries. If one is consistently lenient, always seeking to appease, they risk being taken advantage of. He saw that while love and admiration are pleasant, they do not always provide protection. Those who are respected, on the other hand, command a space that cannot be easily violated. Seneca did not advocate ruling through fear, but he recognized that without a firm presence, even the most well-intentioned individuals can find themselves disregarded or undermined. Epictetus approached this idea from the perspective of self-possession. He understood that one who does not command respect will often find their influence diminished, not necessarily because others wish them harm, but because people naturally gravitate toward strength. He believed that power, in any form, comes not from seeking approval, but from establishing oneself as a force that cannot be ignored. Those who are too eager to please, who fear upsetting others, often find themselves without agency, their presence carrying little weight. Epictetus saw that to be taken seriously, one must first take themselves seriously, cultivating a presence that demands recognition rather than requests it. This understanding remains just as relevant today. In leadership, those who are too eager to be liked often struggle to enforce their authority. In relationships, those who avoid confrontation in the hope of maintaining harmony may find that their needs are repeatedly overlooked. In social and professional settings, those who do not project confidence risk being overshadowed by those who do. The world does not always operate on fairness alone. It responds to strength, to presence, to the quiet command of those who understand how power truly functions. Machiavelli's insight was not an endorsement of cruelty, but a recognition that people follow those they respect, and they respect those they believe have the strength to stand firm. Marcus Aurelius balanced wisdom with authority, ensuring that his kindness was not mistaken for passivity. Seneca understood that boundaries must be enforced, or they become meaningless. Epictetus saw that true presence does not come from seeking approval, but from embodying a force that naturally draws attention. The lesson is clear. If one cannot be both feared and loved, it is better to be feared, not through aggression, but through an unshakable presence that commands attention and ensures that kindness is not mistaken for weakness. The world does not reward those who simply wish to be liked. It acknowledges those who ensure they are respected. Kindness, when unaccompanied by power, often invites exploitation rather than admiration. Machiavelli understood this with unwavering clarity, recognizing that while generosity and fairness are noble qualities, they are only truly effective when reinforced by strength. A person who is kind without the ability to defend their interests does not inspire loyalty. They attract opportunists. In a world where power dictates influence, goodness must be supported by authority, or it risks being reduced to an invitation for others to take advantage. To be kind without the capacity to enforce boundaries is to walk through life unguarded, relying on the goodwill of others rather than ensuring one's own security. Marcus Aurelius, though committed to virtue, saw that leadership required more than moral clarity. It required the ability to uphold justice with firm action. He believed in treating others with fairness, but he never assumed that fairness alone was enough to maintain order. As emperor, he understood that mercy without structure, generosity without limits, could create instability rather than harmony. His kindness was not indiscriminate, it was balanced with discernment, extended where it was deserved and withheld where it would be misused. He knew that to be effective, benevolence must be paired with the capacity to defend it. Seneca expanded on this idea, warning against the tendency to assume that good intentions alone shield a person from harm. He observed that those who give freely, without strategic consideration, often find their kindness turned into obligation. What begins as a choice can quickly become an expectation, and those who lack the strength to set limits often discover that their generosity is not met with gratitude, but with increasing demands. Seneca understood that true kindness is not about endless self-sacrifice, but about knowing when to say no, when to set boundaries, and when to withdraw generosity to prevent its misuse. Epictetus, who had experienced life at the mercy of others, recognized that true security comes not from external approval, but from internal control. He saw that kindness is only effective when it is extended from a position of strength. A person who lacks the ability to assert themselves will find that their goodwill is not seen as a virtue, but as a vulnerability. He taught that power is not merely physical or political. It is the ability to govern one's own life, to determine when to give and when to withhold, and to ensure that generosity is a choice rather than an expectation placed upon the weak. This lesson remains as relevant today as it was in Machiavelli's time. In professional settings, those who are too accommodating often find themselves burdened with extra work, their willingness mistaken for unlimited availability. In personal relationships, those who never enforce boundaries may discover that their kindness is met with increasing demands rather than mutual respect. In leadership, those who prioritize being liked over being respected often lose control over the very people they seek to help. The world does not reward kindness when it is not backed by the ability to protect it. Machiavelli did not reject goodness. He simply understood that without strength, it is fragile. Marcus Aurelius ruled with fairness, but he ensured that his fairness was not mistaken for weakness. Seneca recognized that setting boundaries is an act of self-respect, one that preserves generosity rather than diminishing it. Epictetus knew that true power lies in the ability to give freely without fear of being taken advantage of. The Stoics and Machiavelli arrived at the same conclusion. Kindness is a virtue only when it is protected. To be endlessly giving without the means to enforce limits is not an act of wisdom, but of self-neglect. True generosity is not the absence of power, but the ability to extend goodwill while maintaining control over when, how, and to whom it is given. Without this balance, kindness ceases to be strength. It becomes a liability. Predictability is a weakness in a world that rewards adaptability. Machiavelli understood this with remarkable precision, recognizing that those who are easily read are easily controlled. A person whose reactions are obvious, whose intentions are always clear, becomes an open book, one that others can manipulate, anticipate, and use to their advantage. The ability to be unpredictable, to move in ways that others cannot fully decipher, creates an advantage that cannot be easily countered. To be too transparent is to surrender control, allowing others to dictate outcomes before one even acts. Marcus Aurelius, though devoted to integrity and reason, also saw the value of withholding one's full intentions. As emperor, he knew that if his plans, his thoughts, or his next moves were too easily known, those around him, both allies and adversaries, would adjust accordingly. His leadership required a balance between clarity and mystery, ensuring that while his principles remained steady, his actions were not easily anticipated. He recognized that an individual who is entirely predictable is one who is vulnerable, not because they lack strength, but because their next step is always known. Seneca viewed this idea through a different lens, observing that those who reveal too much of themselves, whether in emotions, plans, or personal struggles, often find that this information is later used against them. He understood that while honesty is a virtue, it does not require full disclosure. Those who are too open, too willing to expose their thoughts and feelings, risk being easily influenced, their decisions subtly shaped by the expectations of others. Seneca believed that a wise individual maintains an element of unpredictability, not as deception, but as protection, ensuring that they are never fully at the mercy of external forces. Epictetus, ever focused on self-mastery, saw predictability as a form of surrender. He believed that one should never allow emotions or habits to dictate behavior in a way that becomes obvious to others. He warned against being too reactive, too easily provoked, knowing that those who can be consistently manipulated through flattery, insult, or provocation have already given away their control. To Epictetus, power was not just in strength or influence, but in the ability to remain unreadable, to hold one's center firmly without allowing external forces to dictate actions. This understanding remains crucial today. In professional settings, those who are too predictable in their decisions, reactions, or negotiations often find themselves at a disadvantage, easily maneuvered by those who understand their patterns. In relationships, those who are always available, always reacting in the same way, can be taken for granted, their value unconsciously diminished. In personal growth, those who operate within strict, unchanging routines often struggle to adapt when circumstances shift. Machiavelli's wisdom was not about deception, but about ensuring that one remains in control of how they are perceived, and ultimately, of their own outcomes. Marcus Aurelius practiced restraint, ensuring that while his values remained visible, his plans did not become obvious. Seneca advised that discretion is not secrecy, but strategy, an acknowledgement that not every truth must be spoken, not every thought must be revealed. Epictetus understood that self-discipline is the ability to act with intention rather than react with predictability. Machiavelli saw that to be easily understood is to be easily controlled, and that those who wish to navigate power effectively must learn to move with a level of unpredictability that keeps others from ever fully defining them. The lesson is simple yet profound. When people know exactly what to expect from you, they know exactly how to manipulate you. Power is not just in action, but in the ability to choose when and how to reveal oneself. Those who master this art are not deceitful, they are in control. They determine how they engage with the world, rather than allowing the world to determine it for them. In unpredictability, there is freedom. In adaptability, there is strength. The world does not operate on ideals, it operates on reality. Machiavelli understood this with absolute clarity, recognizing that those who expect fairness, honesty, or justice to prevail simply because they should are often the ones most disillusioned by life. He saw that while morality and principles have their place, they do not govern the structures of power. Those who refuse to acknowledge the way the world truly functions, who act based on how things should be rather than how they are, often find themselves outmaneuvered by those who embrace reality as it is. Success, influence, and stability do not belong to the most virtuous. They belong to those who understand the rules of the game and learn to use them wisely. Marcus Aurelius, though deeply committed to virtue, recognized that the world is not always just, and that waiting for fairness is often an excuse for inaction. He understood that while it is noble to strive for an ethical life, one must also navigate the realities of human nature. He did not lament the imperfections of the world. He accepted them and adjusted accordingly, ensuring that his values did not make him naive, but resilient. He believed that wisdom lies in adapting to what is, rather than resenting what is not. Seneca, observing the unpredictability of fortune, saw that life rarely rewards effort alone. Many work hard, yet remain unrecognized. Many act with integrity, yet face betrayal. He understood that while virtue is its own reward, it does not guarantee success. Those who refuse to engage with power dynamics, who rely solely on merit and expect recognition to follow, are often left behind. Seneca did not advocate abandoning principles, but he cautioned against blind faith in the idea that life will reward goodness simply because it ought to. He believed that true wisdom is found in learning the systems at play and using them to one's advantage, not through deception, but through intelligence. Epictetus, shaped by personal hardship, had no illusions about fairness. He knew that external circumstances often fall beyond one's control, and that lamenting this reality serves no purpose. Instead, he taught that power comes from understanding the forces that shape the world and maneuvering through them effectively. He believed that those who adapt, who recognize when to act and when to withhold, when to speak and when to remain silent, position themselves far better than those who insist that life should conform to their expectations. Epictetus did not advocate surrendering to injustice, but he did insist that one must first understand the nature of power before attempting to challenge it. In modern life, this understanding is just as vital. Those who assume that effort alone leads to recognition often find themselves frustrated as less competent individuals surpass them. Those who expect fairness in negotiations, in careers, in relationships, may be disappointed when reality does not align with their ideals. The Stoics and Machiavelli both recognized that ideals alone are not enough. They must be paired with awareness, adaptability, and the ability to engage with the world as it is, rather than as one wishes it to be. Marcus Aurelius balanced integrity with realism, ensuring that his virtue did not blind him to the necessity of strategic action. Seneca warned against passive idealism, understanding that one must play the game of power if they wish to maintain control over their own fate. Epictetus saw that freedom is not found in wishing the world to be different, but in mastering the ability to move within it effectively. Machiavelli understood that those who refuse to acknowledge how power works do not escape its influence, they simply become its victims. The world does not reward those who hope for fairness. It rewards those who understand the system and navigate it intelligently. This is not cynicism, it is preparation. The Stoics and Machiavelli arrived at the same truth. Adaptability is not a betrayal of principle. It is the only way to ensure that principles survive. To move through life effectively, one must see things as they are, not as they should be. Those who embrace this understanding do not abandon virtue, they protect it, ensuring that wisdom, strength, and strategy allow them to not just endure the game of life, but to play it well. Machiavelli and the Stoics understood something that many struggle to accept. The world does not operate on fairness, nor does it reward virtue without strength. To navigate life effectively, one must balance wisdom with strategy, kindness with authority, and morality with an awareness of power. It is not enough to be good. One must also be discerning. It is not enough to be strong. One must also be measured. The greatest mistake is to assume that life will reward honesty, fairness, or integrity simply because it should. The truth is, the world acknowledges not just goodness, but intelligence, the ability to see reality as it is and act accordingly. Marcus Aurelius ruled with virtue, but he never allowed himself to be ruled by naivety. Seneca understood the value of wisdom, but recognized that it must be applied with precision. Epictetus knew that freedom comes not from wishing the world to be different, but from mastering one's response to it. Machiavelli saw that power belongs not to the most virtuous, but to those who understand how to wield it wisely. Their insights are not calls for deception or cruelty, but reminders that fairness alone does not govern the world. Perception, influence, and strength do. The challenge, then, is not to reject morality, but to pair it with intelligence, to be kind, but not blind, to be honest, but not exposed, to be strong, but not reckless. Those who master this balance do not simply endure the realities of life, they shape them. The world is not a place where ideals alone survive. It is a landscape where those who learn the rules, who adapt, who engage with clarity and purpose, carve their own path. In the end, the question is not whether the world should be fair, but whether we are prepared to face it as it is. Those who wait for justice to prevail on its own may find themselves at the mercy of those who understand power. Those who act with both wisdom and strategy, however, ensure that they do not merely hope for a better outcome, they create it. And in that balance lies the true mastery of life.